I would let anybody I love, myself, I wouldn't even fly into Atlanta airport during that time when Freaknik is going to be, and I think that's this October. Now I'm not saying this and hoping something happens, but I'm guaranteeing you that something will happen at Freaknik. It is inevitable. You're going to have tens of thousands, maybe, of young black people who listen to rap music, who follow rap music. Let me take that back. Rap is not music. Let me take that back. They are listening to rap. They are following its culture. They are doing everything. They're dressing like them. They're carrying on like them. All that kind of stuff. And this is what they do. Now, it doesn't matter that out of the 10 or 12, 15 or 20,000 or more that's going to be there, that 95% of them are all going to be good. They're all going to be on their best behavior, and they are there just to have fun. But all it takes is 10 or 15. That's all it takes. And it will be about 10 or 15 because there's going to be gangs there. They're going to be at each other's throat. It's going to be 5 from here, 6 or 7 from there, 6 or 7 from there. It's going to end up to be about 15, 20, 25 bad guys out of 15, 20, 50,000, whatever it is. That's all it takes. 1 or 2 bad guys to start spraying bullets and everybody's running for cover. You didn't just blew the whole thing. You blew everybody fun. That's what's going to happen at Freaknik. Trust me. A relative of mine asked me to go on, did I want to go on the upcoming Soul Train cruise? No thanks. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. You know, when I think of Soul Train, I do think of older, mature adults. But it's always going to be an element that's going to be a young element that's going to come on there because they're going to try to impose their will. And it's going to blow it for everything. I would be my head would be on a swivel on a ship full of a bunch of black people. No thanks. No thanks. I go to events all the time, every year, that are mixed, mostly white, mostly, different acting people. And I never have seen a fight. I've never, let alone a shooting. And I'm safe, and I feel safe. My head's not on a swivel. One of my relatives, the same relative who asked me to go on this particular cruise, came to one of these events that I go to, the Indian Wells tennis tournament in Palm Springs every March. And she came down and said, this is one of the first times that I can be somewhere and I don't feel like somebody's going to steal something from me. Somebody's going to hit me on my head. Somebody's going to do X, Y, and Z. And I would say, hello and welcome to my world. Because what you are experiencing now, I've been through that. Ain't doing it no more. Back then, when I experienced it, I didn't have much choice because I was young, wherever it was, I had to be where it had to be. But now I have a choice and I have control over where I go and what I do. El Paso, not doing it. I pick and choose my battles. And like I said, if something that I'm saying here that you all don't like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I am witnessing day after day after day black people killing black people at an alarming rate. Most of it is purposeful. A lot of it is stray bullets and accidental, but nonetheless, they're shooting at somebody and hitting someone else. And if you don't know that, you need to stay off of CNN and your local news because they're not going to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that. They only want to say anything that when a black person seems like a victim. It would be racist to employ the video and the facts that happen that blacks are only 13% of this population and they commit 55% of the violent crime, not just crime, but violent crime. How in the hell is 13% of the population committing 55% of the violent crime in this country? How is that possible? And if you want to take the 13% that black people are and split it in half, because 95% of the time men are doing the crime. So therefore, it's probably 6% of the population doing 55% of the violent crime, murder, rape, carjacking in this country. Explain that. So if you don't like it, guess what? It's not my fault. I am telling you what I know. And anywhere there's a high concentration of black people, there is going to be trouble. That is why I move away. I don't want to move nowhere around a bunch of black people, especially a bunch of young black people, because it's not going to be a good deal. Trust me on that. In Chicago this year of 2021, and we're not even at the middle of July, there have been 887 people shot, over 450 people killed in Chicago this year alone, and we still have over 5 months to go. Most, at last check, 67%, nearly 70% of the perpetrators and victims are black. So blacks are killing each other. But somebody has black people running around yelling Trump is the bad person. White supremacy is the bad person. They're talking about the insurrection or whatever they call that from January 6th, where one person lost their life. And the insurrection was basically an infiltration of people just coming in, and you didn't know whose side they were on. It's never proven. It's like Antifa, who are hijacking Black Lives Matter protests. You have people from the other side will come in and hijack a particular situation so that the other side can take the bad credit for it. You don't think everybody in there is on one side? But they're still, listen to CNN, and they're talking about the insurrection of January 6th, and one person lost their life, and it wasn't even for that particular reason. And in Chicago, you have, over the July 4th weekend, you have 200 people shot, 52 people dead over a 5-day period. And you're talking about a freaking insurrection. Get off of that. Find out and learn what is the biggest detriment to black people in this country. And it's rap, it's hip hop culture, it's gangs, it's that lifestyle, it's that crap that they listen to and that they believe and that they think the other side is the biggest threat to them. And the biggest threat to them is the same color person when they stand and look in the mirror. It's not it's not a white person. When have you ever seen or heard that there's some people running by drive-by shootings, carjackings and stuff like that, and it's white people shooting each other? When have you ever heard that? When have you ever heard that? You never hear that. And guess what? Since the media is trying to egg on that the problem in this country to black people are white Americans, white supremacists, white nationalists, guess what? If there was a chance for them to do it and show it, it's going to be on the news. How come you think you've never seen it? You have to go to cable, not even cable, you have to go to the internet on YouTube, to somebody's YouTube page or their blog page or their podcast to find out what's really going on. You're not going to see CNN talk about the murders in Chicago. Why would they? That's not what they want you to hear. So if you don't see it on there, you think it don't happen. Oh, yeah, it's in the back of your mind. You think, well, yeah, it's Chicago. Yeah, there's murders and murders. Yeah, but those numbers just become what? You just get desensitized to it? 200 people shot in Chicago? And like I said many times before, it ain't just Chicago. That city, that ghetto city that's 90 miles north of there where they're holding the NBA championship right now, Milwaukee, is just as worse. It's just as worse. It's just not bigger. Milwaukee is a horrible place. You will get knocked off before you can say the word go if you venture down. I'm not even saying the wrong place. You've been watching the NBA playoffs, NBA championship with the Bucks and the Suns, and you see when they're out in Milwaukee and they're out in the front of the arena. I've been in front of that arena before, but not during that time. It was last year. I took some pictures, but you see those thousands and hundreds. It seems definitely thousands of people, and they call it the Deer District. It kind of rivals Jurassic Park when the Toronto Raptors were doing that a few years ago. But the Milwaukee Bucks and their fans had made a little Deer District. Now, that's fine. It's good to see. It's good camaraderie. It's good sports, fun. But I wouldn't be caught dead there. In Milwaukee, all those people, all it takes is for some hero, quote, quote, hero, to come in there and make a name for themselves. There ain't no way, and it hasn't happened yet, and I pray to God that it doesn't. But just me, I don't need to be around those type people, those many people in Milwaukee. I may do it in Salt Lake City, but I have to think about that too. But I definitely ain't doing it in Milwaukee. Minneapolis? All these places over the 4th of July weekend. Memphis is having a string of car freeway shootings. A string of them. 90 this year. So there's some nut or two or three on the highways of Memphis, Tennessee, going around shooting people, shooting cars. Baltimore. 112 people shot in Baltimore over the 4th of July weekend. I told you it wasn't just Chicago. Philadelphia. Shot. 92 people shot. Let me look. 7 people killed over the 4th of July weekend in the city of brotherly love. In Houston, you know what they're doing in Houston? They have a ring in Houston of criminals who are following people home from high-end jewelry stores and high-end Gucci and bag stores and whatnot. They're following them home, some as even far as 45 miles. They're putting trackers on the bottom of their vehicles so they don't have to follow them too close, GPS trackers. And they roll up on them when they go into their neighborhood and they come on home. They stick a gun to their head, either shoot them or they take their goods and their belongings. A young black man was killed in Houston by some black people coming from a jewelry store buying some goods for him. And they followed him home. And this was in the middle of the daytime. They followed him home. He was actually going to a party, right? So it was a house party. And he pulled up. There was a lot of cars on the street. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. Didn't bother them. As soon as he got out the car, they ambushed him and killed him. Took his money and gone. Now, this, like I said, they believe that this is like a group of the same 6 or 7, maybe 8 different people doing this. And you know what? That's the way it is. Maybe they'll get caught. Maybe they won't. But these criminals have become emboldened by what a lot of liberal people have signed off on, and that's defund the police. Now, we know what defund the police mean. When you first hear it, it actually sounds like you're trying to get rid of police altogether. Okay, that's what it sounds like, and that's how it came over. But what it actually means is that you want to take away money, funding from the police force and put it into some, like what they were saying, like social workers, and try to rehabilitate people. And you send a social worker to a domestic violence scene at a house and you try to talk them out, and they don't have guns. And so that's supposed to be, that's the liberal way. Guns are, sending the police their strong arm is the bad way. But you tell that to the lady when that guy has a gun to her head, and you send a social worker there. What is that going to do? So these criminals have become emboldened because they know that even though they got the definition probably of what defund the police mean, they do know that there's going to be less of them. And there are police officers retiring, quitting, doing whatever they can do. And so when you defund them, you're taking away from the detectives as well, the investigators. Guess what? So now when someone, one of your loved ones is killed, or your house is broken into, or somebody is shot, the first thing you're going to go is, I want justice. Well, you can't get justice, people, if you don't have the funding and you don't have the manpower to do that particular investigation. Because guess what? You shot your own self in the foot because you defunded the police. And now instead of this department having 5 detectives or 6 detectives,